Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I'm here with.
Al Spader.
And for those of you who have been checking our videos, you may know that Al Spader has written for Star Trek Adventures, the role-playing game. Most recently, Sentience, the role-playing game, a fantastic role-playing game about living robots. And now we have Monster of the Week: Terrifying Tales from New England Folklore. So yeah, you released was it 3 adventures for Monster of the Week? Can you tell us
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. I was introduced to Monster of the Week early last year, and just fell in love with the concept. It was really my first time ever playing a Powered by the Apocalypse game in general. And like after playing one session, my brain was going crazy, and I was like, I got to write all this stuff down. And I ran a couple of these mysteries for at my local game shop, and had it all written on paper. And after I met up with the Yellow Hand for the Sentience gig, one of their guys had been working on some Monster of the Week stuff as well, and they had a whole layout already for it. And I was like, hey, I got 3 mysteries here. You guys want to publish these too? And he's like, they're like, absolutely. So that was how it all started.
If I may ask, why horror?
I mean, for me, it's more about the this aspect of Monster of the Week. I prefer to think of as like storytelling. Like I like mythology, like modern mythology, and like cryptozoology, things like that, are all fascinating to me. And I think that the very basis of Monster of the Week is solving a mystery, right? Putting together clues and trying to figure out what's going on. And I think that's what alerted me to the game even more than the horror aspect.
So, what exactly is Monster of the Week, the role playing game?
Yeah, I compare it to like anywhere from Scooby Doo to Supernatural and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So like that's kind of where I see this game. Now you can take it different ways. Some people like to put it dark in Call of Cthulhu and things like that. And some people I've seen people adapt like Michael Myers and Freddy and Jason to it. But for me, my concept was I wanted to look at the modern mythology of New England, where you and I both live, and there's so many cool stories that come from this region of the United States, that I wanted to get some out there into the public, and that's kind of what I started doing here with this book.
What is it about New England, do you think, that seems to inspire so much horror from so many writers about this area?
So I think like when you're looking at um, the mythological aspect, we've got the indigenous people of New England. We've got the Canadian indigenous from the north. We've got the indigenous people from the United States proper. We've got possibly Celts making it over here, possibly the Norse making it over here, and there's just all the, it's like this. It's almost like New England's a melting pot of also like ancient stories. And I think that that really sets like an undertone. And of course, everybody jumps to the Salem witch trials, right, as being like the big thing. But there's so many cool, different like horror stories that come out of New England, that I think that this series of mysteries that I've written, I think there'll be more coming in the future.
Okay. So, again, there are 3 adventures in this book that you've written. The first one, the Poco monster.
Mhm.
What can you tell us about this story?
So the Poco monster is I was my buddy had this book of like Maine cryptozoology. And one of the things that it had in there had a little section on Maine water monsters. And there were a couple of different ones mentioned in there. And I thought it would be cool to tell a mystery about something that could be perceived as supernatural but might not be supernatural. And so I looked at the story of Lake Poco Moonshine, which is up near the border of Canada. And there's basically a story of a Native American battle that happened around this lake, and supposedly as a result of that, there's a lake monster there. So I was like, this sounds really, really cool. There's lots of different things you can do, lots of different directions you can go. And so that's kind of why I decided to start there.
Oh, interesting. Is it history that helped inspire you to write the
Yeah.
story?
So actually, so the actual Lake Poco Moonshine is a real lake. The story of the Poco monster is a real story. In fact, every character that you see that shows up in, or almost every character that shows up in the mystery, the non-player characters, are all taken inspiration from real life people. So like I went through and did some research on some Maine game wardens that work that part of Maine. I looked at different professors that might be working in the local colleges, and took inspirations from them to make them as like contacts in the story, which is pretty cool.
Now, before we talk about the second adventure, the sacrificial stone. I have to say, looking at this, the arts and design is really good. If I may ask, before we talk about the second adventure, can you tell us a little bit about the art and the design behind this
Yeah.
book?
So the layout is done by a gentleman by the name of Jay Sojdelius, and he is from Sweden. He lives in the United States now, but he used to work on role playing games when he lived over in Europe. And he's decided to start his own little company where he does layout and different board games and RPGs and whatnot. And then the artist, the actual art that we've been putting together, it really comes from a lot of people, a lot of ideas come together. But the painted art that you see in the book comes from a gentleman by the name of Sebastian, who also works for this group, the Yellow Hand. And really, it's just a bunch of creators that are working together to make really cool looking products.
The sacrificial stone. It looks like you have a creature in here it's pretty much one of my favorite monsters of American lore, the Headless
Yep.
Horseman.
Yes.
But what can you tell us about this adventure?
So yeah, the Dullahan. So one of the things that is really cool and trippy when you live in New Hampshire is just about every single school has taken a field trip to America's Stonehenge. And for those of you that don't know what America's Stonehenge is, it may or may not be a real thing, and there's lots of different people divided on it, but it's basically these megalithic structures that were found on this farmland, and a couple of different proprietors of the land have opened it up for schools or for people to go and walk through, and one of the actual structures there is called the sacrificial stone. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea. And so we ran with that a little bit. Um, yeah, very, very cool.
Hmm. And the end of the veil. What can you tell us about this adventure?
So I've been kind of nerdy about ghost paranormal investigations and ghost investigations and whatnot. And as we're progressing through New Hampshire, heading out towards Vermont, there's a cemetery called Vale End Cemetery, and it's supposedly like the most haunted place in New Hampshire. I actually got a chance to go there once with my friends one night, and it was pretty scary. But there are some crazy stories that came out of, like, real life stories that came out of this cemetery that people have posted online and whatnot. So I kind of used some of those stories to kind of come up with an idea for a big mystery surrounding the entire city and a couple of the people buried in the cemetery. So
Hmm. Now, these stories, are they constructed in a way that anyone that may not be familiar with New England myths can just jump right in and create the game?
yeah, so we do an introduction for every single story. And then basically it's locations and people and things that you can learn at each of these locations or with each of these people. And it's very open, it's very sandboxy. Like you can do a lot of things as the story progresses. At the end of each one of these, we do random facts about the creatures that you encounter. So like the previous one, we talk about like what is a Dullahan. This one, we talk about what is this bad guy that you're looking for, and so on and so forth. So hopefully all of that information will help like lay the foundation for the story that you're playing through.
Oh, okay. And are these adventures separate? Or are they connected in any way?
Yeah, I mean they're meant to be they're standalones. Usually about 4 hours, 4 hours each, one session, I would say. I know my group here at the local game store, they set up their own little home base, and we go out and do different episodes. I like to think of it as like an episode of television, sort of like what I do with Star Trek Adventures. And yeah, so I mean that's 3 sessions of play, and I think that like if you photocopy the handouts and whatnot, you can get really, really into some of these stories.
If I may ask, being that you use history as an inspiration to create your stories, these stories, were there any themes, anything you picked up making them that you noticed that kind of connects New England mythology together?
Um, let's see about that. So, uh, I mean, a lot of this stuff is rooted in indigenous cultures, and stories that have passed down or have been changed in some way to the people who eventually came here and settled New England. But yeah, I mean, it's not. There's a lot of fear built in, and a lot of this fear is not based on like monsters or anything like that. It's like fear of a new culture, fear of religious backlash, fear of so it's like you play a horror game and you expect to be afraid, but the concepts driving the whole thing are much much deeper than just the monster at the end. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Now, I want to ask you a fun question. Usually, I'll ask creators like, if you make a character for your adventures, who would you make? But being that you made sentience,
Mm-hmm.
if you made an AI robot and they were exploring these adventures, what would it think? What would they think?
So I would love to think that um, an intelligent, sentient, artificial intelligence would start thinking about stories and the meaning of stories, and trying to think about what the underlying concept of these mysterious creatures are. I think that one of the ideas that we were playing with in sentience was to try to understand the world and what does it mean to be alive, and trying to understand these creatures. Maybe there's a way that you can get to an end point without having to fight them, or without having to banish them, or without, you know what I mean.
Hmm.
um that's kind of the way that I always envisioned the sentience robots going, trying to take it in a positive light.
So, is this available right now online?
Yep, drive through RPG. It's on print on demand. Yep. And you can either just look up Al Spader, it'll pop up. Or if you type in the yellow hand, this will pop up, and there'll be another one that pops up, written by Ben Swainbank, who is another writer for the Yellow Hand. And his layout was the one that we used for my book. So I deeply appreciative to him for that.
What's next for you? What's down the pipeline?
Well, still, I mean, as I tell Jim Johnson every day, Star Trek is still my main priority. Like, you give me something for Star Trek, I will have it done as soon as possible. And so we're still a lot of that happening. Right now, I'm working on a game called Once Upon, which is a storybook role playing game. And the cool part about that is it's using a system that I've created called the threshold system, which uses pools of D12s to determine what happens with your character. So I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping to have that out by the end of quarter 1. I'd like to do another book of another 3 to 5 mysteries at some point if I can find the time to do it. I also want to get my Sentience World Guide book rolling as well. Aaron Pollier designed an entire system. He's the guy that writes all the technical jargon and stuff for Star Trek Adventures, and he designed a world and a system for me, and I want to get more into the world of Sentience, but that's probably quarter 2, quarter 3 next year, I think.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us about your latest work. And to our viewers out there, stay safe. Don't venture in the night too much. We'll see you next time.